And welcome everybody to this session on SAMM. I thought I wanted to start with a quick poll. Who has heard before of SAMM? Most of you. Great, that's good news. Who has worked before with SAMM? Who has worked before used it in your organization a bit? You've looked at it, but okay. So kind of half of the audience. Okay, that's very good news. So the idea for today, for this session is actually twofold. We want to give you a bit of an overview of what SAMM is all about. Explain you a bit the different elements of the model to make sure that everybody is aligned and on the same page. And then we also want to give you some heads up on the version 2.1 actually, that's coming out soon. Date still to be determined, but it will be quite soon. To ease everybody already, the release of version 2.1 is not going to include any major changes to the core model itself. It's more about supporting aids that will help you to facilitate your lives in applying it, in using it. And making sure that we can all work together on using it. That's some of the highlights already, some spoilers. But it will not really change the actual core of the model. I think the stability of the model is quite important. We'll come to that during the presentation as well. But so that's the idea for today. So who are we actually? So Seba.
Yeah, so I'm Seba, or Sebastian Deleersnyder. So we're both from Belgium. So there's this great security consulting company called Toyon. Obviously, I'm biased. I founded it. So and then I'm also doing lots of trainings. Last couple of years on threat modeling and other stuff with the training subsidiary, Data Protection Institute, and then. I started the Belgian chapter in 2005. That's some time ago. Got involved in some OWASP, I would say, initiatives. But I spent most of my time lately, I would say, spent my SAMM OWASP cycles on OWASP SAMM, together with Bart, but also with a great group of other people that work together on that.
Yes, exactly, because actually we're together doing the talk right now, but actually we have a team of core contributors to this project that have been working already for years on this project. So what you're seeing is the result of all these people working together and collaborating much more than just the two of us standing here. That's important. Yeah, so myself also been involved in OWASP for I think 15 years or so. Have been in the SAMM project since OWASP took it over, because it actually started from Pravir Chandra that defined it back in 2009. But since OWASP took it over, have been involved as a co-leader together with Sebastian. And I'm working professionally for PwC, just professionally. Well, but my passion is definitely just professionally, but that's not why I'm here. I'm just here to explain everything that I do for SAMM rather than my professional career. All right. So let's get started. As I said before, so the session for today will be in two parts. First of all, a SAMM overview, where we will explain a bit more the model, but also some extra elements that are there that we've defined that are available to you, just to make sure that you know how to navigate through the entire model and different instruments. And then looking further into SAMM 2.1, that will be released soon. All right, let's get started. So SAMM, most of you are familiar with it. That's what I saw during the quick poll. But so the most important idea for SAMM is to give you some kind of an instrument to actually measure and reason about software maturity or software security in an organization. And it's supposed to be very versatile, so it can be applied to whatever technology that you're using in your company, whatever software development method that you're using in your company. It can be applied to whatever organization you are, whether you're a very small tech-oriented organization or a very big multinational organization. It doesn't really matter. It will give you the the framework to reason about software security in your organization. In that sense, it's also not a technical piece of work. It's more like a framework or structure that's helpful for you to reason about it. It's supposed to be measurable, and we'll come back to how we can measure things. But actually, there's a clear way how we can measure, and that's actually quite important because you can measure at one point in time, but you can also measure progress in an organization over time, and can also use these measurements to compare different organizations or different units. So being able to measure how you're doing is actually quite important, and that's actually a core part of what SAMM is about, being able to measure where you are and where you want to go. It provides you with pathways on how you can improve. It provides you with suggestions on what you could do as your type of organization, in which we call what we call roadmaps. So it can also help you or support you in defining what's the best way to move forward as an organization. That's what SAMM is all about. There's actually quite a long history of SAMM, and as we just heard in the previous keynote by Jessica, great things take time. This is actually kind of an example of this, I would say. But SAMM is already there since 2009 or even before that. The first version of SAMM, at the time it was called OpenSAMM, was released by Pravir Chandra, 2009. At that time it had a lot of traction, and we immediately community saw there was great value in that type of model because it was not really existing at the time. Over time, different versions have been released. Some versions were really breaking the model. Other versions were just, improving what there was, but without breaking the model. Because you have to realize if organizations are using this model to measure what they're doing, if you would be changing the model itself every 6 months, it will be impossible to work with. So one of the key elements for OWASP SAMM is to provide you with a stable model that you can use in your organization over time. And it's not changing every 6 months. So stability is actually quite an important element of this model. But so we did change, for instance, the measuring system in SAMM 1.5 in 2017. We changed how scores are calculated, and that actually had quite an impact on people using, organization using it. And actually quite a big change was done in SAMM 2.0, which was released in 2020. We actually changed the core structure of the model. Before we had 4 business functions, we went to 5 business functions, and we really changed it because it was really very obvious that we needed to provide way better support for modern development styles. Not waterfall development, but more like agile development, DevOps development. And with the version 1.0 or 1.1 or 1.5, it was more difficult. There were some key features or key practices that were really lacking in the model. And that's why we defined 2.0 that came out 2020. Now in 2023, 2.1 will come out, but actually, what you're not seeing here is that, we are using, intermediate versions. We're using semantic versioning with the model. So actually, we have released in the meantime also 2.0.1, 2.0.2, 2.0.3. You don't see that here, but it's not that we've been sitting still with the project. All right. So that's that. Let's, look a bit into the structure of the model. Overall, the structure of the model looks like this. That's on the top. We have what we call a business function. And business function is something that actually relates to how an organization typically works. And we'll come back to what the business functions are. But typically, they are easy to map to what an organization can understand and how you're organized as an organization. Under a business function, there are different security practices. We'll give some examples later. But there are 15 security practices in total in the SAMM model. And then under every security practices, we've defined 2 streams. And actually that concept of stream has been there since 2.0. It has created a bit of confusion. I would say quite some confusion because we get a lot of questions about what is a stream and is stream A more important than stream B. You should just think about it as a way to structure the different activities under a practice. Nothing more, nothing less. It's just a way to structure things. And then we're talking about activities in different maturity levels. That's what the model in its core is about. So let's make this a bit more concrete. So these are the 5 governance business functions in the SAMM model. Governance everything around governance, design, implementation, verification, operations. The implementation business functions is the new one since 2.0. So that's the one that was not there before. And you will see under these business functions, there's always different security practices. So under design, for instance, there's a practice around threat assessment. There's a practice around security requirements and security architecture. You will see that in the model itself, it's quite broad and it encompasses all activities or practices that we think are important as a community in terms of the broader spectrum of dealing with software or secure software. So it's not only about coding, it's not only about testing, it's also about what are the standards that you have to use. It's about decommissioning software. It's about what do you do when an incident happens on your software that you're running. So it's quite broad in its scope in that sense. Right. So as I said, under the security practice, we always have these streams. Just one example, if you look at threat assessment, let me try to use this pointer. Yes. Right. Okay. Yes. If you look at threat assessment, for instance, there is a stream around application risk profile where we try to define what is the actual risk that this piece of software has towards the organization. If it would be broken, what's the impact towards the organization? And there is a stream around threat modeling, doing threat modeling on applications. So this is the overall structure of the model. You've probably seen this before, and we'll give some more examples as we go along. But this is the overall structure of the model. Right. So the activities in the model. So there's lots of activities. They're a bit structured like this. So every stream has activities, and the activities are structured according to maturity levels. Let me try to show that a bit more visually. So in these streams or in security practices, you have growing maturity. So we have 3 maturity levels, 1, 2, and 3, and we define activities indicating actions that you should be doing or things that you should be doing in an organization with increasing maturity, difficulty to implement it in an organization. So levels 1, 2, and 3. Typically, level 1 is you're doing it at a basic level. You're doing it already, but it might not be very structured, but you're doing some things in that particular dimension. Level 2 is you're doing it in a structured way. You can repeat it. You're doing it. It's defined. You're able to. It's like a solid practice. And level 3 is it's an optimized way of doing that particular problem in the organization. So really making sure that you regularly revisit what are you doing, does it make sense, and so. That's the kind of the notion of these maturity levels. So every stream has these maturity levels, and we have 2 streams. That's what I explained. And so every stream then has per maturity level an activity that you should be thinking about. Am I doing this in an organization or not? Does it make sense to do it in an organization or not? That's kind of the structure. All right. Seba.
Yes.
Okay. So that's all good and fine, but how do we use this? So it's a maturity model. So how can we test where we are? And if you take, for instance, the security testing, so we have the both streams, but if we take one activity, testing for software security controls, how do we know what level we are? So what we've done is for each of these activities, there's a question with a set of answers. And in level 2.0, the new version, what we've done with these answers is they're not only in terms of quantity, what are we doing and how good, how into what extent and what scope are we doing it, but also in terms of how good are we doing it? Are we reaching our objective? And that is something that is really new with version 2.0. The quality criteria are part of the model. So if we look here at, for instance, do we test applications for the basic security controls? For instance, do we have authentication in place, access control in place, input validation, like the basic stuff? Well, either you do it or you don't. That's obviously the answer that you have. Some of them, at least half of them, will give you a little bit of like more granular way of answering that. But first of all, the quality criteria are, well, you should definitely be verifying at least these kind of controls. That's the part of that. And it should be whenever you change something about those controls in your application. Those two aspects are really important. If you don't cover those quality criteria, it will always be no. So if you don't cover the quality criteria, you can't answer the question. And that's true for the whole model. And that is really something new in 2.0 and really critically important. Yes. So obviously you don't have to do that manually. There's lots of tools. Since long, we've released spreadsheets, both in Excel and in Google. It's, I would say, one of the best tools for doing these kind of things. More, I would say, user and development friendly. We also have tools like SAMM, which is a single page application, which you can deploy yourself, which has the same kind of questions and answers, and where you can save that, export that, import that, and so on. And also there's free online tools as well. As for instance, the SAMM tool is quite a recent one, written by Aram and his team from Codific. So there's lots of tools out there that you can that can help you to assess where you are. Yeah, join us. So that's one way of assessing. Another thing that we've also added as part of the I would say the tool to SAMM itself, SAMM itself is a PDF. Since 2.0 was released 2 years ago, we have the website to use and consume and understand the model. But people still want to have a PDF to search the whole text or to read the whole text. One thing though, don't print it. It's 300 pages at this stage, so it's really good in a PDF format, and it's really usable for that. But don't print it. Now, how do you implement SAMM? Obviously, it's not only about the assessment, but also about the impact. What are you going to want to do with it? So, and it's really meant to increase your maturity up until a level that's good enough for your risk profile in your application. So the different steps, and they are explained in the model and also on the website, is, well, obviously you want to understand what your scope is going to be, how you're going to apply it. You assess against the model. You set your targets, like, okay, where do we need to be in terms of our business, in terms of our risk appetite? And then you define a plan. And the tool that's provides you with a way of iteratively growing towards that target maturity. And you're not going to get there in like 6 months. It's going to take you some time. So you start implementing that. There's lots of guidance and pointers to lots of other OWASP tools to actually implement some of these security activities. And then you start rolling it out with the different teams, and you're in an iterative improvement, I would say, program or secure development lifecycle project. So that's how you use SAMM. In terms of resources, we create and deliver everything from GitHub. The model itself, the website, is recreated every time when we change something. All I would say supporting materials are available in a Google Drive, and obviously the website OWASPSAMM.org is where you can see and use the model itself. But I would say that's SAMM in a nutshell. We have also a full day of training if you want to have, I would say, more details around this. But in 2.1, we've changed quite some things. So maybe Bart.
Yes, thank you. So for us, version 2.0 was really about redefining the model, making sure that we have, like, again, a model that is aligned with modern software development practices. That was for us the focus of 2.0. The focus of 2.1 is really about making sure that you as a community, you can actually use these models in whatever context you are. So it's really about providing more guidance, more tools, more everything that you can use to make it work for you in your context. That's for us a bit the focus of 2.0, and we've been working on a number of elements for that matter. Now, I think this model has proven that it works quite well, because we see at the download rates, a lot of people are downloading it, are asking questions, are using it. Our hope is that we as a community can all work together on this, so that it's not only about the project team pushing out the model, it's about everybody helping each other. And that's also about, it's also one of the things that we're trying to achieve with the project, putting instruments in place to make sure that we can all help each other. And we have Slack channels, but we have a specific form of guidance that we've defined, which we'll talk about later. But it's really about making sure that we can actually activate the community to help each other. I think that's really what we're aiming for. And it's an entire open source model for that matter as well. So a number of elements that will be part of version 2.1. First of all, we've done actually a questionnaire in the course of last year. So we've asked around to people, are you willing to answer a bunch of questions to gauge a bit about, okay, where are you as an organization in terms of maturity? What is interesting? What works well? What doesn't work? We'll share the outcomes of this, some of the highlights of the outcomes here as well today. There's definitely a number of frequently asked questions that we get from time to time. We want to make sure that we can capture them and make them available on the website and other instruments, but we're going to touch upon some of them also today. In terms of, so that's about input from the community and towards the community. So we want to also make sure that we can provide more guidance for developers. So what we've done is we've actually John DeLeo actually has created kind of a roadmap for developers in OWASP SAMM. Because if you're a developer, not everything that is in SAMM might be relevant to you. And so you want to be focusing on particular elements, particular practices within the model. And so we've been based on, let's say, persona of a developer, we've defined like a pathway for developers. That's something that we've created. We've started it with developers, and we can create it for other personas as well on the way. If we see that we have enough traction on this, we might create it for other personas. Also very important, we've been working on mappings, trying to map SAMM towards other standards that might be relevant in your particular context. If you're an organization that is regulated by in financial industry and you have to, let's say, implement ISO 27K, okay, how can SAMM help you to get to ISO 27K in terms of application security? That's what these mappings are about. We'll discuss a bit more. And then finally, benchmarking. How do I compare as a company to other companies? That's probably the most popular question that we get. And it's something that we're working on, and we really want to share with you, where we are on that. So let's dive into it. First of all, the questionnaire. So we've launched this questionnaire in the course of, I think May last year, something like that, May, June. No? Oh, October, no, because we had results back in October, November. Okay, we launched it in October. Seba knows better than I. So we launched it in October, November last year. So, okay. We got, and we got back quite some results. So 157 participants took part of this questionnaire and provided us with answers. For your information, good to understand that more than half of it were internal practitioners. So it's not external consultants like providing advice to a company, but really people within the organization trying to improve the organization itself, which is actually quite a nice result, because back in the days, early, it was a lot of consulting that was being performed using this model. Now what we see is that the uptake of the model is more going towards within an organization, making sure that you can structure an organization. Actually, very interesting trend. We also saw that we got scores from the organization, different people. So I'm scoring 1 on governance, 2.1 on design, and so. And so we computed actually the average maturity level over all the scores that we got. And on average, for all these answers, we saw that the average maturity level was 1.2. It is the average. It is what it is. I think it's, we haven't done really an evaluation of what are the types of companies that we gotten in. You can debate about it. I would argue that somewhere between 1 and 2 is what I would expect. If you would have, companies going, beyond 2, that means that you will have to invest quite a lot of money to get there. So I'm not that surprised with that average actually on that. Yeah. So, okay. Right. And actually, a lot of people are actually interested in providing data for a potential benchmark. Because one of the things that we actually have been always struggling a bit is getting enough data in our benchmark. Because if we want to provide you with data, you have to submit data to us. But a lot of companies are a bit reluctant to share the data with us, because if you share your state of maturity on AppSec, well, it might be from a PR perspective, maybe considered a bad thing or so. So in the past, we've often had reactions that people are not very willing to share the data, or it should be anonymous. But this turns out that actually quite a lot of people are actually very interested in sharing data. So let's maybe dive a bit more into some statistics, but let's not take too much time on that. Maybe first of all, some improvements that were suggested. People wanted to have more guidance, which is actually what we did in 2.1. We'll talk about that. People were looking for mappings towards particular standards, which is what we did in 2.1. We started it. We'll share some of the details there. People were looking for benchmarking data, which is what we're working on. It's not there, but actually we're making progress. And we've been well, it's one of our core focuses over the past years already. We know it's really important for the community, for all you guys. So we wanna really make sure that we can deliver that. All right. Provide SAMM for teams and products.
So the idea is that SAMM itself is quite a broad framework. Is that and the SAMM for development teams is a little bit of an answer to that, but not completely. Because how do you apply it on a smaller scope, like on a team or on a product scope? That's the question.
All right. So I think with version 1 we've addressing a lot of the suggested improvements that we got, which is actually, well, we're here to serve you, I would say. So I think that's good news. All right. Maybe some statistics, highlights. We're not going to spend too much time there. But so primary role of the respondents, more than half were internal practitioners. So being in a software security group or so. And then you have some other external practitioners or target of an assessment, people trying to understand, okay, they're coming to audit me or assess me. Let me try to figure out what this model is about, and I can answer the questions that I'm getting. Okay. So in terms of SAMM assessments that the people have been performing, the respondents have been performing, the majority of people have been doing few assessments. So 1 to 5, a few assessments. It might be once every year, maybe only one, we don't know, a few assessments. Well, there are definitely also the targets probably have never done an assessment. That's probably around the 20%. That's probably that. And then there are some groups of people that have been doing more assessments, maybe in different business units of organization. If you have an organization with like 10, 15 business units, you might want to do an assessment for every business unit. Maybe it's a yearly recurring thing, or maybe it's consultants having lots of different clients. That might be the case. We don't know. If you look at industry, you see that actually a lot of industries score a bit similar. Only the technology industry stands out in a lot of usage in the technology industry. There is one thing to mention, that is that we haven't clearly defined the financial services industry, because actually we would expect quite some usage there as well, because typically they're quite mature in terms of how they organize themselves in AppSec. But so if we count them together, also in financial service, there's quite some uptake on the SAMM model as well. But
it was actually because we had a couple of like default options. We just forgot to add finance in the default options. So some people added it like in other finance. So we aggregated them towards 19. But if we would have had it in the default options, it'd probably be higher. My best guess. That's the next survey.
All right. Organization size of people that answered, it actually varies quite widely. All sorts of organizations, different sectors, but also different sizes. That makes it actually interesting to see in terms of the average maturity level. Well, it's about different types of organizations, basically. All right. And then, how was SAMM used? A lot of, well, the majority here are actually using SAMM to build a program around SAMM, and that's actually what it's meant for. You can use it to a single assessment, but actually the core value of SAMM is actually driving the improvements in your organization. So in that sense, we're very happy to see that people are using SAMM for that as well. Okay. Then the overall average, we already discussed that, 1.2. And then it also seems to be the case that people are actually quite happy in using SAMM in order to recommend it to people. So that's good news. I don't know what's your experience with it, but overall people seem to be happy. We're always looking for feedback to further improve it, but overall seems to be good. All right, then Seba, back to you.
Okay, I'll use
all right,
this one. So, but I want to also show it on the website. So, all right. We have a couple of questions that we get a lot, and one of these is so we're looking to adopt SAMM, but okay, it's a framework. So it has the advantage of being technology agnostic, but it also has the disadvantage of being technology agnostic. So you have to translate that towards, okay, what does this mean for my cloud native development or my whatever stack that I'm going to develop on? Or so do you have more guidance on the model is one of the questions. And yes, we have that now. And so what we've done is we've released what we call the stream guidance. So in the security practice, there's 2 streams. So in each of these streams, we've added particular guidance. I'm going to show you where that is in a couple of seconds. But the kind of guidance that we're adding continuously right now, but also I would say crowdsourcing. So if you have any experience with applying or using SAMM and you see there's missing guidance or you want to add something there, you can. And so there's an interactive form where you can add your own guidance proposal, which is going to be vetted and reviewed by the core team and then added to the model. What kind of guidance? Projects, references within OWASP, obviously, mappings are there, best practices, tools, and so on. So if we go there, if we go to OWASP SAMM, where's the guidance? Obviously, you have here the guidance here, stream guidance. There's a whole explanation of how that works, which I would recommend to have a look at. If we make it a little bit bigger, you have the model, which is here on the website. If you take any of the streams or the security practice, for instance, education and guidance, you have what we've shown you before. But what is new in essence is that, for instance, under training and awareness, you have the description, you have the 3 maturity levels here. Is if you scroll down, this is new since last December, stream guidance. And the idea is that under this Google Doc, which I said is everything is available also in our Google Drive, there are references, for instance, education and guidance. What would you do without, for instance, OWASP Juice Shop? It is an on-purpose vulnerable web application that you can give to your developers and train them to discover them and to see what's wrong with that. So as an example, OWASP Top 10, Security Shepherds, Security Knowledge Framework, API, wrong secrets, and so on. Mapping to standards and other models. So for instance, mapping it to BSIM 13, this education awareness. There's conduct security awareness training in BSIM 1.3. So each of these streams do now have these kind of guidance where you can scroll down, see what's in there. If you see there's something missing, and you think it should be in there, next step what you should be doing is you go to this button and you say, okay, I want to add something here. You're going to have to add your email because we can provide you with some feedback. But then you select your stream, you select your categories, say what kind of levels it applies to, some title, URL, description, and why would this really be guidance. And in this way, we are already getting in quite some suggestions. So just to be very clear, they're not automatically pushed in towards the guidance. We are reviewing them. There's some and then there's some Google script afterwards that regenerates those pages. So that's the guidance, and we've been this is, I think, one of the really big steps that we've made with 2.1.
So highly recommended. And if you see something's missing, call us out on that. Yes.
Have you worked at all together with the SAMM?
Yes. Yeah. Timo Pagel. Yes, definitely. Yes. There's some, we've included Timo in the discussions for the SAMM 2.0 model, and there's some basic mappings. There's some presentations on DSAM and SAMM. So yes, definitely. Another question we get a lot is, okay, so we started to do this, but do you know of an organization or a consultant who can help us with that? Now that's a little bit of a tricky question. Because we're all working in companies that actually do that. So obviously I can say our company is really the best, but that's not really how OWASP works. So how can we, I would say, work around that? So we came up with a SAMM practitioners list. And this is really like a list of practitioners that provide services around SAMM. And there's a couple of like basic criteria. Obviously they have to describe somewhere on their public website what they're providing. It has to be related to OWASP SAMM, otherwise we're not going to get on the list. And they have to ask it themselves. We're just going to check if the criteria are met, and then you're on the list. So that's actually how it works. And if you go to the practitioner page here, if you go to community, practitioners, you already see, so very clearly, this does not in any way mean that we endorse, recommend, or favor any of them. It's just we are providing you with an alphabetically ranked list of providers. So they just can say, okay, which kind of region or country is being served. We are always going to add like, okay, are there certain contributors or sponsor levels attached to those kind of practitioners, because I think it's fair to recognize on that. But if you look at the list here, there's already a growing list of organizations that provide help with implementing SAMM. So again, if you are working for an organization or that provides some services and you're not on this list, get in touch with us. It's really easy to get on there. If obviously you're looking for help, this is a good resource. So that's something we added there as well. So I'm going to skip over this, and then because I explained that, then in terms of extra guidance, so the SAMM for developers, or for development teams, that was indeed what John DeLeo created, and I'm going to skip over these a little bit faster because we want to leave time for Q&A. But the idea is that there's what John calls the critical path through SAMM for a development team. Because you can't do everything at the same time at once. That's not going to work, but there's a really logical way of going through SAMM based on basic understanding of the threats, making sure you capture requirements. Obviously, you need to build and deploy, otherwise it's not going to work. And then testing, but not only like dump testing with a tool, but also requirements-based testing, that you meet what the security requirements actually were about. So this is what the critical path is. There's a couple of, obviously each of these streams are being explained. They're very logical. The threat assessment is understanding the risk profile of your application and creating a basic threat model for your application. Here is some subliminal, like extra slide that shunning from Threat Modeling Connect made me add to it. But Threat Modeling Connect is a community that works on threat modeling, so it's I'm one of the founding members, so I had to put it in there as well. So if you want to know about threat modeling, that's in here as well. Security requirements, understanding what you need to do, but not only in your own software, but also in any piece of software that you're using. Software suppliers and how to deal with them is included in there as well. Requirements-driven testing, which we just covered in the earlier example, and then secure builds. And obviously, source code analysis is important there. Secure deployment, making sure that you can automatically and repeatably deploy and so on. So it's not rocket science, but it's just to make sure that you have that and that you have like a really a good system of injecting secrets and so on. And then testing with tools, but also through manual testing. So that's the critical part for development teams. There's some pillars, some foundational activities that support that, and those are understanding what your compliance and regulation requirements are, education and guidance, keeping track of everything that's defects. Defects will pop out of any of the security practices, and defect management is on tracking and measuring those. And then the whole patching and updating of your full stack, and obviously operational management is involved there as well. So that's in a, I would say, 5-minute overview, capturing like a 1 hour plus presentation that John also has, which we're going to fully record and make available as well. But that's a little bit of a preview there. Which brings us to the next thing, and that was the mappings part.
Yes, some more words on the mappings. So again, the question from community was, can we have more support in linking SAMM to another standard that we have to implement in our organization, like NIST SSDF or like ISO 27K or so. These are the mappings for us. So what we've done is we actually have defined a number of standards that we actually want to provide in terms of mappings to help you meet a particular standard in your organization that you have to meet by using OWASP SAMM. That's the idea of the mapping. It's really to help you. So we've been doing this already for several standards. We've been working on that, and we've just actually released the mapping for the NIST SSDF framework. Version 1.1 for NIST SSDF was released February last year, I think, if I remember correctly. So we've been working over the past couple of months to actually really define the relation between all the activities in NIST SSDF and OWASP SAMM. So several people from our core team have been really working on that a lot. What you actually see in that mapping is that NIST SSDF is a bit more generic in terms of types of activities that it has, and we really try to make clear all the a bit more concrete activities and security practice that might be able to help out to achieve that. So we also have been in contact with NIST to discuss the mapping. We've proposed the mapping with them, and so we're actually also really in discussion with them to make sure that it perfectly aligns with what they have in mind for NIST SSDF model. So actually, this is what the mapping looks like. The idea is not, it's not readable, first of all, so apologies for that. The idea is not really to go into the detail of that, but actually the mapping is available for you to work with. And so what we've done is we've done the mapping from NIST SSDF towards OWASP SAMM, and also the inverse, depending on how you want to work with it. And for every mapping, there's actually a relationship type, meaning that is it a one-to-one mapping? Is the other activity containing part of the other part? And so it's really very quite clear, and I would say even almost formal into what the relation is about. So it should be it really help you out in using OWASP SAMM in support of NIST SSDF.
I think maybe I can add to that. Maybe whole view is impacted by SSDF NIST.
Not impacted, but trying to follow.
Yes, trying to follow. It's certainly in the US. There's lots of organizations.
Vendors, they have to follow SSDF.
Exactly.
Or you're in trouble.
If you want to ever, I would say, sell something to the US government, this is mandatory. You're not going to get away with not providing software that's not in line with SSDF. But providing the full mapping provides you with the possibility, if you're already using SAMM, to say, okay, it's not that hard. We just map what we're doing on SSDF, and there we are.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea.
And actually, it was also interesting to see that NIST SSDF actually suggests the use of OWASP SAMM in the model itself, but it was never made very clear on how it actually has to be done. So what we wanted to do with this mapping to really make it very clear, okay, this is how SAMM can help you in getting in line with compliant with NIST SSDF.
Yeah, because it's very basic. It's just that they've laid down some procedures and then go do it yourself.
Exactly. And so we see that SAMM is much more concrete in the types of things activities that you can do. And that's actually what this mapping is about, to really help you. It's a bit like the guidance that we provide as well. We try to give you the instruments to organize yourself in AppSec in your organization. So yeah. All right. So that for instance, it has been released a couple of weeks ago. So it's there for all of you. It's downloadable. At the same time, we're also working on the ISO mapping, and the OpenCRE mapping as well. Seba, you mentioned before. Actually, I wasn't even aware of that, so that's also new to me, but good to hear. So actually, lots of activities are ongoing there. In any case, if any of these models is of particular interest to you, we'd be very happy and grateful if you could also contribute mappings to the model, because actually everybody can benefit from this. So if you actually are working a lot on, let's say, Microsoft SDL in organization, and you have to do anyway the study on how you can use OWASP SAMM to actually meet Microsoft SDL, we would be very grateful if you could just contribute back to the project. That way everybody can benefit from it. Okay, that's about the mappings. And then benchmarking, just looking at the time, 10 more minutes. So we'll have to keep that a bit short. But so one of the core questions that we always get is there any benchmarking data available? How do I compare to other organizations? We've been working on this already quite some time, and we actually had some limited benchmarking for version 1.5 available. But it was not very consumable. You had to contact the project team to actually get some data out, and so it was not very open and shareable. So what we really want to change now is with version 2.1 and going forward is to provide you with a benchmarking tool that you can submit data, but also actually get analysis out of it as well. So you can actually compare your organization towards other organizations of the same size, the same sector, the same geographical location. That's really the idea. So there's a couple of people in our core team really working on that, have been defining the data model. How can we store the data? How can we store it anonymously? How can we make sure that we can update data? All these types of things. And actually there were quite some, non-trivial problems to overcome to actually set this up. And right now we're in a state where actually we're testing. Yeah, that's also something. We're actually testing out initial versions of a data model and a database and some tool to be able to ingest data into that model. Brian Glass from our core team is working that together with Maxime Bale. And actually, the goal is to develop a tool to be able to ingest easily data into it. And actually, getting data can come from different sources. It might be the case that if you're actually completing an analysis from a spreadsheet, there might be an option to say, okay, are you willing to share this data? If so, yes, click yes, and there might be some data sharing going on. We might be putting up a data API for you to be able to just connect some kind of REST API. There might be different ways of getting there. But the idea is that we gather as much as possible data set from everywhere and that we share it back to the community, because that's what everybody's asking for. And so that's one of the core priorities for us for this year. I'm going to skip this. And that's what I already discussed. If you are interested in helping out the project, well, this is definitely one of the paths where we can use extra resources, extra cycles in terms of development, in terms of testing it out, in terms of all sorts of things. But we can definitely have some make use of some more helping hands. The idea is that we want to publish a first analysis in the course of 2023. Maybe not all data sets are maybe not open yet, but at least that we give something back to the community in terms of an analysis of what we have gathered in terms of data sets. All right. I think that's it around the benchmarking. And then I think we're kind of rounding it up. The OWASP SAMM is really a project where we're actually working with quite an extensive core team of more than 10 people, around something like that. More than that. The idea is that we are, preparing as much as we can from the core team, but we really want to connect the community together in terms of input, your questions, what works well, what doesn't work, how can we help you, and how can you contribute to the model as well? Because we think the strength of the model is about making sure that, if you have a model that's usable everywhere and that you can learn from each other, then the entire community will gain from it, will benefit from it. And that's how we want to go forward and grow in this. So in that sense, we are always looking for community feedback. We're also community driven in the sense that, for instance, in the guidance, we're looking for your input in that guidance. If your input can be valuable for other people working with the model, so that will always be beneficial. Yes. And maybe some topics that we're thinking about taking up in later stages is, the benchmark report and surveys. We want to do that on a yearly basis, depending on how much data we are able to ingest, but having a yearly, questionnaire to see how does the community think about the model and where can we improve is always a good thing. We want to build integrations with tools for the benchmark, as I explained before, with Excel or with online tools like the tool from Codific or others. If we can automatically get the data into our benchmarking, that would actually be a great thing. We're looking more into project integrations with different OWASP projects. We'd like to think that we're a relevant project in the OWASP community. We also see that most of the other projects can fit under some activity or security practice that we're actually providing in the model. So in that sense, you can look at it as OWASP SAMM as kind of an umbrella project in that sense. So we try to connect as much as possible with other OWASP projects to make sure that, the things that we're doing makes sense. We're thinking about building APIs for SAMM, can be benchmarking APIs, can also be about the model itself. Actually, our entire model is specified in YAML files, and whatever you see in terms of the Excel and the website and so on, it's also automatically generated. So we're thinking about building like open APIs or open data APIs to query the model, query data, all these kind of things. It's future music, but still. And something that we're also thinking about is providing more enterprise support. Because what we see is if you're using the model in enterprise, and you're doing a lot of these assessments, like you have 15 teams that you wanna evaluate regularly, then we currently don't really have good instruments to support that. So we really are thinking about, okay, how can we provide better enterprise dashboards to manage a lot of assessments, to consolidate assessments, define roadmaps, and so on an enterprise level. There currently our support is quite limited, I would say. So that's also some of the ideas.
Mm-hmm. And something also wanted to add, so we, the SAMM security labels, think of this, if you're looking at your refrigerator, you have the ABC, or your food like ABC, or the car with the risk like the car crash stars and so on. I think this is Jeff Williams that I think more than 10 years or 15 years ago dreamt of having like a software security label. And I think SAMM has at least like the foundations to provide us with some kind of software security label. So that's something we're definitely also thinking of. That would definitely be helpful to compare software against each other. So that's, but the most important question is also how can you help us? How can we help you to increase the impact of making software more secure? And that's the basic question. So if you're interested in contributing, contact us. There's more than enough ways to get in touch with us, so no excuses there. Mm-hmm. So there's obviously we have discussions on our GitHub. We have the Slack channel on the project. We have a newsletter which has no spam, but every time when we have a new release, a new blog post, you will get an email, so register for that. We've also recently started up a meetup group, because every month we have a community call. So every second Wednesday of the month, actually, we do a community call, which is open to everybody to join. So
every second Wednesday, right?
Every second Wednesday.
Yeah. Hello, okay. I thought you said Tuesday, but Wednesday.
Wednesday.
It's
Wednesday.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
anyway, it's all on owaspsam.org. So join us there. Obviously, we're also very grateful for the sponsors. If you like it and you can convince your boss or you have your own company and you use this, obviously, we welcome you very much to support this. And that's it, really, for us.
The other crowd's waiting outside for us, so.
Yes, but
I'll have
just in
that-
time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.